Good morning, traders, and welcome back for another week of morning market prep reports and a interesting week this is going to be. How about we take a look at what happened overnight? First off, Asian markets last night mostly lower. We had the DAX was down. Asian markets. Let's talk about Asian markets. Mostly lower. We had Australian markets up just a little tiny bit at 0.18%, but the Nikkei was solidly lower, down 422 points or 1.09%. India was down 0.34%. Hong Kong, however, very bullish, up 0.77%, and Shanghai lower at 0.21%. South Korea was also lower on the day. If we take a look at European markets here this morning, European markets are mostly lower this morning, with the DAX down 0.36%. The FTSE is up just ever so slightly, $8.75, 0.11%, and the CAC is lower by 23.80 or 0.35% at the moment. If we take a look at U.S. futures, well, U.S. futures are mixed as well this morning. We have the Dow futures at the moment down 166 points or 0.38%. S&P 500 futures down 0.25%, and NASDAQ futures in the green up 63.75 or $65.75, 0.32%. So we'll want to be keeping an eye on that. And there's quite a little bit of bouncing around going on here today as well. So what does that mean? Well, let's take a little bit of a look further. If we take a look at oil this morning, oil's trying to bounce up here. Right now we've got oil futures up 42.5 cents at 67.35 a barrel. So moving to the upside, we also have Brent crude moving up at 71.41 a barrel. If we take a look at natural gas is trying to bounce after a pretty ugly day on Friday, pushing back down, dropping into the gap. But you can see we're trying to bounce up here just a little bit, get back above that support area here in the chart. When we take a look at precious metals, we're also getting a little bounce back up here on gold. Right now, gold up $27.60 an ounce. Silver is up just slightly here today. Copper, not so much. Just kind of flat here this morning, with platinum and palladium, however, also higher here this morning. So we got a little bit of a bounce going on here in those precious metals. If we were to take a look at cryptos this morning, boy, the celebration over there in Bitcoin continues. If we take a look at BITO, we're up $590 a coin here this morning on Bitcoin. Unfortunately, Ether is down $20 a coin, and some mix in some of those cryptos here this morning. Last but not least, let's take a look at those pesky bonds. The bonds on the 2-year continuing to hold strong in here at 4.30% on the 2s. The 10s are at 4.46%. In those 30 years at 4.65%, continuing to show us that pressure as the market continues to push up. Our rates are going higher, and that's a problem, I think, for the overall market, the overall economy. It could also end up being a problem for Jerome Powell here, as the bond market continues to suggest something is out of place, and we'll want to be watching carefully for that. Let's take a look at well, let's see. I think that's it. So how about we settle in? Let's buckle up. Let's get ready for the Monday edition of the Morning Market Prep video. Good morning once again, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. I very much appreciate it. Let's take a look at our index charts here, see if we can figure out how we might want to approach the market for today. Remember, we want to look at these charts for what they are, not for what we want them to be. because anything is possible. And by the way, I want to announce this morning that I'm just going to do an impromptu open house today. So if anyone is interested in coming in and seeing what we do here in Right Way Options, make sure to come to the website, hitandruncandlesticks.com. You will click on into the Right Way Options trading room, and you can spend the whole day with us today, and I'll show you a little bit about how we made some really great profits on Friday, actually on the short side, being short a couple of the indexes heading into the week, and why we believe that was a pretty good trade. So if you're interested, stop on over. We'll have an open house today, Right Way Options. Let's take a look at some of these charts. Now, first off, this pullback on Friday or last week was pretty painful, I think, for a lot of folks that might have chased in. But I got to tell you, looking at this chart, there's nothing about this chart that's really bearish just yet. As you can see, we're holding on to this price support here in the chart with this gap down here this morning. So pushing down into this support. Now, the worry would be if those bears were to continue to push and we were to drop into this gap. Notice this gap is huge. It's this massive point gap. If we were to drop into that gap, that's going to become really serious probably pretty quickly. But we're already extremely sold off in the short term. So if those buyers can find some support in here, find some reason to bounce back up, well, then we'll start working this back to the upside. Now, as we push back up into here, there's a couple areas in here that I'm going to be pretty keenly watching. Something right up in here, as we push up into that, if we can't find that energy to push through, pushing on back up to retest these highs, I'm going to be watching for that potential of a lower high here in the Dow. Now, I hate to say that, but that's where sellers can really begin to come in on the chart if that becomes a problem for us. Now, if the bears were to find inspiration, we already talked about this gap below, and we start moving down into there, I would suspect that fear would come up here in the market if we work to fill that gap. But as of right now, that's still a very bullish chart on the diamonds. We just need to see those bulls step back in. If we take a look at the SPY, also the same. We pulled back, strong pullback here, obviously, after that big gap up. And we started to dip into the gap, but by the end of the day on Friday, they pushed this back up. And you can see holding in here on this major support, this would be a great area for the market to relieve this selling pressure and maybe bounce back up. If we can, notice right here, breaking back above this area, if we push on through there, we've got a little gap that we can fill and maybe coming back up to into here. Now, my major concern is whether or not we'll be able to break all the way back out to new highs here in the chart, and that possibility that we could put in a lower high here on the SPY. Now, if the bears were to continue to follow through here today, then I would be watching right in here that possibility that we do drift into that gap. We've got a good area of price support here to potentially hold us, but if we were to push on through, coming down in here to finish filling that gap would probably raise a little bit of concern in the market. I'm going to say pretty much the same thing about the QQQ. The QQQ had a bit of a rough day on Friday. As you can see, we gave up this breakout. So that means we have really pulled this back considerably here in the chart. And we don't have all that much farther to go in here to possibly fill this gap in the market. So if those bears were to find inspiration here on the day, push down below Friday's candle could potentially bring us right into a gap fill. Now, that being said, we've got bulls stepping up here this morning and working a gap up here in the diamonds. So if those bulls can continue to find that inspiration, the place I want to be watching is right here. See if we can break back above that area of resistance in the chart. And if we can, then we have that potential that we could push back up and we could test this gap. Notice we had a gap up here and a gap down here. That leaves an island reversal pattern. That is a very strong reversal pattern in the market. And that potential island reversal pattern is going to be important if we can't break back above there. If we were to fail to get back through there, then that potential that we create a lower high comes into play here in the QQQ. So keep an eye on that. And then if we take a look at IWM also faded into the gap. We broke this support here in the chart. And remember, this support runs all the way back over here. This is these tops breakout right here in IWM. And we failed to make a new record high in the Russell. Pulling back pretty strongly, we dipped into the gap. And you'll notice right here, we've got a little tiny price support right there that we bounced off of here on Friday, and they're trying to carry that through to the upside here this morning. We'll want to watch that carefully. If the bears were to find inspiration here, I could not rule out the possibility that we could come down here and retest or fill this gap completely on the Russell. Breaking down below there, of course, would raise some serious concerns. But if you'll notice across here, that's our upside trend, which is a very flat upside trend, but we still have that chance we could catch that trend and still bounce off of that. Boy, I'm stuttering this morning. If the buyers can step on up. Now, if the bulls were to have inspiration here today, then watch carefully for that possibility that we push back up here into this resistance. That's going to be a critical point. Remember, pulling that back, that's going to be those tops in here in 2021. Can we push back up through there? If we can, then we have that opportunity that we could try stretching on higher here and see if we can reattack these recent highs, and then maybe even try to test the all-time high breakout here in the Russell. Unfortunately, we're kind of running out of a bunch of those earnings inspiration to really inspire this higher, so that could be a bit of a problem here for IWM. If we take a look beyond this, how about we look at our VIX? Our VIX had a pretty fearful move on Friday, spiking up here substantially, coming right up here toward this resistance and filling that gap to the upside. Now we still have actually more gap to actually fill it completely, but filling a bunch of that gap in that rally. If the bulls find inspiration here today, then we need to see this pushback that began on Friday, that to fade back here. We need to see that fear drift away. And there's a huge event coming up this week that we'll talk about that is highly anticipated for the market that could create all kinds of volatility for us. So hold on and we'll get to that. If those bears, however, were to find inspiration today and we see that push right up into here, watch that resistance right there. Breaking through up above could be a problem for us in filling that potential gap here in the VIX. Let's take a look at our T20s. Now our T2122 gives me the best hope that we will get a bit of a relief rally bounce. Now right now we've got the diamonds pushing a bit lower, so we might see this dip first thing here this morning, but watch that carefully. If we can find some support in here and a bounce, then a relief rally could easily begin. And it's pretty typical when we look at this, as you can see, push down into this area, push down into this area, push down into this area, and then we start to work that back up in that relief rally. So if those buyers do push up, just notice we've got a pretty good upside opportunity here for them to really press back to the upside. If those bears, however, were to find some opportunity, we still have some room to sink here in the data. So watch that carefully if these data points today bring out those bears. Now, if we take a look at our T2108, the percentage of stocks above the 40-day moving average, well, of course, T2108 was giving us some hints last week, and we will talk about that today if you guys are around for the free open house today. But that push down, as you can see, creating some pressure here. We fell just below our 50% area, but not so much as to be a major problem. So if those bulls can get that relief rally going, getting back above that 50% is going to be a pretty important psychological level in the market, and then pushing back up toward this downtrend where we can start dealing with these resistance levels as we push back up. Now, if the bears were to find inspiration, well, you guys can see these support levels down here that could easily be attacked if we continue to find some bearish reason to push on lower. And our T2107 also very much the same. Now, the good news is we're still well above our 50% area here. We got a support level right down in here to be paying attention to. But clearly we rejected this resistance up here. Got a little carried away, too much too soon, and we started pulling back and breaking some of these levels of support. Now we've got a little teeny tiny bit of support right here in the chart, and if those bears were to break that lower, then I would look for this area here to be tested. If the bulls, however, can find that inspiration to push, maybe back up into here, and we start moving back through these areas of price resistance, trying to come back up on any kind of relief rally. It's going to be really critical here that we get some support from breadth here in the market. So first off, you can see our breadth last week was pretty weak, pulling back, and even on that selling wave on Friday, we caught a little bit of increase in breadth to the bearish side, but it wasn't enough to really give me that impression that the bears are really taking over. Just a little bit of fear creeping up in the market. So we need to see those bulls, if they can find that inspiration, to really start pushing and seeing that breadth coming back up in here in the market. Maybe we can start coming back up and testing some of these high points here in that push back up, if those bulls can really find something here to grab a hold of. Now, let's take a look at our economic calendar here for today. And our economic calendar, well, not a whole lot to go on here today. We're going to get a housing market index report, as you can see here, and right now they are expecting consensus a 43, which is flat over last time. We'll want to keep an eye on that because we have seen some numbers here recently that housing prices are holding up and even moving higher in places, creating some sticky inflation situations for us. We're going to have Goolsby speaking, a couple of bond auctions, and a Treasury International capital report at the end of the day. Looking into Tuesday, you can see pretty light. We've got a housing starts and permits number, e-commerce retail sales, more Treasury buyback, and some bond announcements. Wednesday, we're going to be dealing with our normal mortgage applications, Atlanta Fed business inflation expectations, petroleum status report, and then, of course, some bond auctions and Treasury buyback results. Thursday, we get into just a little bit more meat and potatoes here with jobless claims, Philly Fed manufacturing. We've got Hammock that will be speaking. Existing home sales will be in here. We got leading indicators, quarterly services survey, a natural gas report. And then we're going to get into some bond announcements. We got the Kansas City Fed number coming in here. Hammock will be speaking again right after some bond auctions and just before a TIPS auction on the 10-year, along with the Fed balance sheet that we mostly ignore. And then if we take a look at Friday, we got a PMI composite flash. Consumer sentiment will be coming in here, and a Treasury buyback announcement as well. So how about we take a look at our earnings calendar here for today. And our earnings calendar, well, we're really starting to lighten up on our earnings calendar, but we have a major earnings report coming up on Wednesday. NVIDIA, highly anticipated report coming up on Wednesday, could be the make or break here for the market, whether we continue to zoom to the upside or if we start to fail. As you can see, NVIDIA fading back here after consolidating quite a while, but on Friday ended up breaking this trend just a little bit, coming into this next level of support. So a little bit of uncertainty may be coming into this report on Wednesday. Highly anticipated. Keep an eye on that. It could be dramatically market moving. Now, beyond that, if we take a look at today's reports, pretty light here. BRC reporting here this morning. Nice little bounce here in BRC first thing here this morning, trying to break through some resistance. Keep an eye on that. And TWST is the only other notable that I have for today. Now, make no mistake, there are more reports coming off today, but a lot of them are the very, very small cap type stocks, very low volume type stocks that just don't have that ability to truly move the market. So keep that in mind. But then after the bell, not that many more. We've got an ACM here this afternoon to be paying attention to. We've got BRBR that will be reporting this afternoon, and SYM also in there for notables this afternoon. So what does that mean? Well, how about we settle in? Oh, excuse me. How about we, boy, if you ever wanted to know if I edit these videos, if they're done live, you really know it today with all my stammering and stuttering here today. I guess the weekend was too harsh for me. How about we, take a look at some stocks that could be setting up for today. But before we do that, everyone, if this is the first time you've seen these videos, if you could please do me that favor, if you could please click that subscribe button on YouTube and also click that bell icon when it pops up, so you'll be notified every time I post a video. And if you find these videos to be useful or helpful, if you could do me that favor and click that thumbs up button, leave a brief comment, that'll help the channel to continue to grow. Thank you so much for everyone who does take the time to do that. I truly, truly appreciate it. And for those of you who share this video out on your social media feed and help support the channel through the Buy Me a Coffee link just below the title of the video, you guys are truly awesome. Let's take a peek at some of these stocks that could be setting up. And remember, everyone, these are not recommendations to buy or sell any security. You need to do your own due diligence. You need to be working very, very hard to follow your rules and your trading guidelines. You should never, ever blindly follow anyone else's trade ideas. Well, first off, let's take a look at something that I might be adding to a trade here for a longer term position, and that would be here in AT&T. Now, AT&T following through here this morning, I really would like to see that kind of rest back here just a little bit more in that chart, but this has just been that nice bullish move, broke through some resistance, resting across over here in the chart. So watch that carefully here for an AT&T. Now, I will be thinking about this as a longer term hold. As you can see, breaking through this major bottoming pattern, a great dividend payer. Keep an eye on that. And since I am on that case here for longer term trades, take a look at WHR. WHR, Whirlpool coming up out of this bottom, breaking through here to the upside. Watch that carefully. This is starting to look pretty good. Had a nice dividend coming here. As you can see, ex-dividend date was on the 15th. But any rest or pullback in here, I think, sets up that next opportunity for a potential entry into Whirlpool. Let's take a look at a few other things here that could be setting up, but maybe not on the longer term time frame. First off, let's take a look at cryptos here. Anything in that crypto field right now is extremely bullish. And if you take a look at coin, now obviously it is very hyperbolic in this move to the upside, but that doesn't mean we can't continue to move up in this very steep trend because of the enthusiasm that we see here in the market. But watch that carefully if it does extend. And I wouldn't be surprised, y'all, although we've got this nice bullish push Little rest or pullback could bring this right back down into support, rest for a period of time, and then still look for your upside opportunity there in coin. If we take a look at Robinhood, also showing very bullishness, very much a lot of bullishness here in the chart. A nice little resting consolidation here. Look for that opportunity if those buyers can step up here and push this on through. If we get a little bullishness coming in the market, every reason to believe that could push on through here in Robinhood. Other trades, as you guys know, I've been watching carefully for this possibility of an Apple short. Apple pushing into that downtrend here. We're struggling with our 50-day moving average here in this chart. And as we can, for Pete's sake. Okay. We're going to get here. We're struggling with our 50-day moving average, so watch that carefully in here. If that were to fail, that could be a pretty interesting short to the downside. So watch that carefully if Apple does happen to fade. Take a look at Google. Google had a pretty hard pullback here, but the good news is we're coming into this longer term trend. The question is going to be in any rally back, if this bounces and rallies back up, if we happen to create a lower high in there on Google, watch out, because that could create that shorting opportunity here in Google. For now, holding in there pretty good. AMD, as you guys know, I've been harping on this one for a while as that potential short. If you've been short this trade, congrats, but I would not be pushing my luck here too far. I think there's a pretty good opportunity here with a little bit of bullishness in the market that this would bounce back up, could bounce right back up into this downtrend and price resistance. That's where you want to look for that next opportunity to short. So be careful here on AMD. Not looking very healthy here at the moment. Other stocks to be taking a look at. Take a look at some of these oil sector stocks for bullishness. Now I've got a price alert here on ExxonMobil. If those buyers can step up in here, notice we're holding this price support and we're sliding out here toward the trend. We're seeing oil trying to push back up here today. So look for that opportunity. If this can find those buyers in here, maybe pushing back through to the upside. I also really like the way FANG is still kind of holding in there. It had a pretty rough day on Friday, as you can see. Still holding in this trend. If it can come back and start pushing back up, I would watch carefully on that. Stocks like EQT has just been amazingly strong. Little resting pullback coming in here, breaking through some resistance. Watch for the next opportunity in some of those stocks. Now, for stocks coming off the bottom, I think we should keep an eye on UNG. Now, UNG popping up here off of this bottom, if it can prove to hold this higher low in here, if it can prove to hold it and we can see some follow through buying, this would potentially begin that upside trend. So watch that carefully here. This could be a real low risk entry type trade if that natural gas starts coming back around, and that's still a very big if. And I would continue to keep an eye on some of these bond situations here in the market. Take a look at TLT. That is just a horribly ugly chart. If those bond yields continue to hold strong, then there's every reason to believe that could continue to move down. But if you look at TBT, which is the inverse of the treasury bond, the 20-year treasury, you can see a lot of bullishness in here and every reason to believe that we can continue to stretch on up to some of these next resistance areas in the chart on that. Some pretty ugly things going on in that bond market that we'll want to be watching pretty closely. Now, if TLT were to finally bounce, there could be a big upside coming in here, but we first need to break that downtrend. We first need to hold that higher low in here. So watch that carefully. And if we continue to keep an eye on the dollar, well, the dollar's not giving us a whole lot of hope here of those bonds really pulling back much. As you can see, continuing to show lots and lots of strength. We're knocking our head against this resistance in the chart, but that opportunity of popping on through here still exists. I will tell you that I think this trend here in the dollar is a little bit extreme, and likely needs some pullback or rest here in that chart. But we're not seeing those bonds give up yet, so watch that carefully here in the market. Kind of keep an eye on the financials. Those financials have done really, really well here. Take a look at XLF. Nice little tight resting consolidation right in here. If that can push on up from that point, I would watch carefully for, well, for Pete's sake. I'm going to get this thing situated here eventually. Push right on through here to the upside. Watch that carefully here in XLF. If we take a look at like WFC already stretching on up to the upside. BAC showing lots and lots of bullishness here. And keep an eye on those pay systems like Visa. Visa, nice little resting consolidation, potentially setting up for that next upside move. MasterCard holding in there good. Stocks like SQ made a big booming move here last week. Any rest that continues in here holding against this resistance, I would look for that bullish push if the market decides it wants to bounce here in the next few days. Watch for that opportunity that could push on higher here in SQ. And PayPal, take a look at PayPal. And by the way, if you come into the RWO room today for the open house, ask me about these trades. I'll show you what I've done here, why I've got just tremendous profits in these trades already, if you have an interest in that. So make sure on the open house here today, that's just kind of a, there's been no emails on this. I just decided this morning, hey, I'm going to open up the room today for everyone to come in. Come on over to the Hit and Run Candlesticks room. You'll come into the Right Way Options trading room. And I would love to see you there. We can have a great day together. Y'all take care. Be safe. Wish you all the best. And I will see you right back here bright and early Tuesday morning. Take care.